I'll call the meeting to order today on February 18th, 2026. Do the roll call, please.
Yes, so committee member Trott is absent. Committee member Simon. Thank you. Committee member Sampath and committee member Clipper Alana are also not able to make it. Committee member D. Alexander.
Here.
Thank you. Vice Chair Lang.
Here.
Thank you. And Chair Burtis.
Here.
Thank you.
Let's salute the flag. The United States for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, I thought they took God out of it, but
Oh,
I have no idea.
Right. Under something.
Yeah.
Exactly. Great. Okay, do we have any public comment? Okay, all right. In that case, we'll close the public comment period. Minutes from the January 21st meeting. Everybody had a chance to take a look. Yep, any changes?
I just noticed that for the electrification subcommittee where it lists the members that are a part of that subcommittee, it lists Brittany Clipper Alana, but I think it was Brittany Blair who was joining us for that one.
Correct.
Yep.
Any other comments? No. Subject to that revision, we okay to approve it? Yep. Anybody want to?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Okay, good. In that case, we can jump right into Casey's presentation. Casey Fritz from Zero Waste Marin, thank you for joining us. Looking forward to your talk here.
Just flip the switch. There you go.
You may have been expecting more people, sorry. We're very keen to understand what the program's all about, so thanks for coming.
Happy to be here. I'll just get my phone situated. Okay. Yeah, so my name is Casey Fritz. I work for Zero Waste Marin, and I am just going to jump into explaining what that is. So we are a joint powers authority, JPA for short. We were founded in 1996 in response to California state waste law. And basically, we thought that it would be better to tackle things from a truly countywide perspective rather than 12 slightly different ways across the cities and towns. So our governance, we have a JPA board that is comprised of the city and town managers. And then there's a local task force, which acts as an advisory body comprised of members of the hauling companies, community members, environmental groups, etc. We are separate from the 5 waste haulers that operate in Marin County. Here in Corte Madera, you have Mill Valley Refuse Service, but there are the others. So leads to a bit of complexity, confusion if you're working in one place and living in another. But we try to help iron some of that out for people. So what do we do? We oversee compliance with waste laws. So a big one that I'm going to touch on a little bit later is SB 1383, the Short-Lived Climate Pollutants Act. There are other recycling and compost laws, AB 341 and 1826, bit of alphabet soup. We do the annual reporting to the state of California. CalRecycle is the governing body at the state level that oversees waste management, recycling, etc. And we maintain a database called SMART, which all of the cities and towns have access to, including Phoebe over here, so that we can put in notes when we do any outreach to a business or an apartment building. The haulers can put in notes, the cities and towns can put in notes, and that allows us to keep really easy records for how we're complying with the law and what efforts we're putting forward to get people into compliance. There are...
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you want questions during the presentation or do you prefer we save them to...
you.
It looked like Karen had a question. So.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right.
That's you. How's that? Is that any better?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
We are also responsible for a lot of household hazardous waste regulation compliance, and I'll touch on that in just a second. We run the Zero Waste Schools program, which has been running for a decade now. We serve 45 plus public schools at this point, and our goal is to help them reduce landfill waste, implement recycling and composting at their schools, establish green teams, and help the students feel like leaders in that regard on their school campuses. And we do community-wide outreach and events. So we have a lot of community outreach methods. We have a countywide postcard, which I'll give you a little sneak preview of at the end, that we send out each year to remind folks that composting is the law and why it's important. We have social media channels. We send out a newsletter. We have our website. People invite us to events to table. We've been doing grocery store tabling recently. That's the photo in the bottom left corner is tabling in front of a grocery store. So we catch people on the way into the store, hand them a reusable tote if they forgot one, talk to them about how they can reduce waste while they're grocery shopping, that type of thing. And then we do offer technical assistance to businesses. So we will proactively visit them to offer support on how they can recycle and compost and comply with state waste laws. And we also do inspections to see how they are complying with the California state regulations. So that is something I can dive into a little bit. And then finally, for those who are non-compliant, we send warning letters and then escalate to a notice of violation if necessary. If it needs to go beyond that, we pass to the city or town to issue a citation under their municipal code.
So you have some enforcement capability, it sounds like.
So we do not have enforcement officers on staff. We are doing the legwork and documentation to provide a package ready to go for the city or town to issue the citation.
Got it. Okay.
Household hazardous waste. So these are things like batteries, light bulbs, paint, things that cannot be disposed of in the regular carts due to their hazardous nature. So we operate a bulb and battery collection program. So there are 10 sites throughout the county, including hardware stores and markets, that we work with to do battery and sometimes light bulb collection. And then we pay for the removal through an authorized contractor of those batteries and light bulbs so that they can be handled in the way that they need to be handled to not create a danger. We are designing signage and instructions for those bins to make it really clear what is and is not accepted. For example, no vape pens in these battery collection drop-offs, and we're set to expand locations for these going forward. There is also the Household Hazardous Waste Facility in San Rafael that is open to all residents of Marin except for Novato. Novato has their own Household Hazardous Waste Facility. The one in San Rafael is funded and managed by Zero Waste Marin. We have a contract with the Marin Sanitary Service Company to operate that facility. So it's not Zero Waste Marin staff operating it, but we are the ones that are basically on the hook for how that facility is run and managed. We also provide toxic away days in West Marin because it is kind of a trek to get up and over the hill into San Rafael to drop off household hazardous waste. So those are offered annually, usually in Bolinas and Point Reyes, to give people an opportunity to properly dispose of HHW without, again, making that drive. And then in the last couple of years, we've done some marine flare collection events. So marine flares are mandatory on any boat over 16 feet long, and they expire every 3 years. Picture a road flare, but you have it on your boat. They are literally explosives, so difficult to handle. And we have used state funding the last couple of years to host events at yacht harbors for boaters to be able to drop off their marine flares that have expired.
Quick question. Where does the hazardous waste go?
So it depends on the type of material. Batteries, for example, a lot of the components actually can be recycled because like the housing is metal, and then sometimes like the alkaline, if it's an alkaline battery, can be recovered. They are sent to specific processors for that type of material. So frequently within California, but it's just like computers have to go to a computer processor and then batteries have to go to a battery processor. So the dangerous part about these materials going in the curbside bins is that there's slight compaction in the trucks. And then if they puncture a battery in a garbage truck full of paper, that's quite a lot of combustible material. So a lot of times they have components that can be recycled. They just can't be mixed in with all this other stuff and getting, beat around by the machinery because it just introduces a lot of fire risk or like chemical exposure risk. So they just need to be handled with kid gloves.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to do a little highlight on the schools program because I'm the program manager for that program, and I just want to highlight it a little bit. So as I mentioned, it started in 2015. Our strategy has been to enroll elementary schools first, and then middle schools and eventually high schools, with the idea that as our program grows and ages, so do the students. So we've gone into middle schools now that we've covered a lot of the elementary schools, and we'll hear middle school students say, oh yeah, I remember this. I did this in elementary school. So that's kind of the idea behind our strategy. So we are in elementary and middle schools at this point. We do work with Neil Cummins and the Cove, and then Hall Middle, who they feed to. We work with a nonprofit contractor because I cannot be at 47 school campuses. So they help me do the on-site education and provide infrastructure to the schools if they need sorting bins that are color-coded, support green teams. We'll go into every single classroom to do education for all of the students, so not just the green team knows how to sort. Work with the lunch service, you name it. We're really trying to help these schools make a dent in their landfill waste. And to date, in our 10-year program, we have saved nearly 18,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions from being emitted. That number is not super meaningful to a lot of people, so I've compared it to a few things. That's 45 million miles of driving in a standard gas car, almost 2,400 homes energy use for an entire year, or 19 million pounds of coal being burned. So that's the equivalent emissions from those activities that have been prevented through the recycling and composting accomplished in this program.
Is there a plan to expand it to Redwood?
Yes, so we are looking to get into the high schools. We have not quite covered all of the feeder middle schools yet, but my hope is in the next 2 or 3 years, we will be in the high schools. So we're really trying to get coverage at the grade levels before we move up, with the hope that we will have paved the way and made it a little easier for ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I had one question. What about Marin Community College?
So this program is designed for K-12, this level of intensive support. We have had a lot of contact with College of Marin, and are actually in contact with a graduate student who has kind of taken the lead on implementing recycling and composting at College of Marin, and working with them and Marin Sanitary Service and sort of all the moving pieces, advising them on best practices and what they need to do to comply with the law. So we do have contact with them, but this level of support is for the K-12 schools.
And what, just on back to the high school thing, what would it take to deploy to Redwood? Like, what's been the inhibitor there? Is it just bandwidth from you and your organization, or?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten into any of the Tamalpais Union high schools yet, because of the strategy to move from the youngest kids through to the oldest. So there are still middle schools that we haven't enrolled across Marin yet.
Yep.
So we are trying to get those folks enrolled and then move to the high schools. But by the time that we reach the high schools, it is going to require a lot of bandwidth staff-wise to do education for that many students and buy the infrastructure needed for campuses that big. And frankly, it becomes a lot more difficult to implement systems that work because like elementary school lunch is so tightly controlled.
Right.
You're not allowed to roam around anywhere and you sit at your same table every day and you're excused by someone. And those conditions work really well for successful recycling and composting at lunch. It introduces many layers of complexity when the students are allowed to leave and they bring back, who knows what things they bought at lunch. They're all sorts of different things. They're not the same lunch that everyone gets. So we're going to have to get really creative on what systems will actually work. And for students that age, your average 7-year-old, you tell them that littering will hurt a turtle and they're like aghast and
Right.
ready to do it, whatever needs to be done. Not so with the average high school student. There's different connections that have to be made to get them really on board with changing action.
Right.
I've actually talked to the environmental club at Redwood High School
That's
quite a few
great.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. They mentioned that they made posters one year about litter on campus, and they took a picture of one area that was really badly littered and said, do you want our campus to look like this? And it became a competition to see who could litter the most in that area. So there's like interesting psychology at play about what type of messaging will resonate in the 14 to 18-year age group. And it's definitely different from the elementary schoolers. So
Yeah, but
yeah.
you're probably aware we have a committee member who's a senior at Redwood.
Oh,
We have a student committee member, and we also have a student ambassador program, which Sarah organizes. So
awesome.
maybe a point of intersection going forward as you start to think about that. It does seem like their club is pretty well organized, so maybe that would be a resource you could lean on a little bit.
Absolutely.
I don't know about the other high schools, but I assume they have something similar.
Yeah, no, I would love that. Yeah, thank you. Great. Okay, so I thought while I had your attention, I would just go over what belongs in each of the bins. So generally what can be recycled, metals, so soup cans, soda cans, aluminum foil seems to be a point of contention for many people. Aluminum foil can be recycled. It's even okay if there's a little bit of sauce or something on there. They are re-smelting the aluminum. It's literally becoming liquid metal. So little food bits and stuff like that are going to get burnt right off. If you are wrapping an entire burrito in the aluminum foil, that cannot go wholesale into the recycling. But the foil itself, it's okay if it's a little dirty. Same thing, metal lids. If you have like a glass jar, that is okay in the recycling. Glass, I refer to this as food and drink glass or single-use glass, if you will. If you buy a drink that's in a glass bottle or again, pasta sauce in a glass jar, something that is meant to hold a product, be used the one time, and then it's done, that can be recycled. If you broke a window or the glass of water that you put through the dishwasher or like a Pyrex baking dish, that cannot be put in the recycling because it is tempered and not going to melt with all the other stuff that was meant to be used one time. So that type of thing, unfortunately, if you break a window, does have to go in the trash. There is like really large scale window recycling, but that's for window manufacturers. We don't have the economy of scale to do it for the random broken window or Pyrex. Paper and cardboard, pretty self-explanatory. Office paper, newspaper, magazines, etc. All that's fine. And then plastic, again, quite difficult. We message on the shapes. So bottles, jugs, tubs is generally what we're telling folks. People want to know what number they should put in the recycling. The number is only telling you what type of plastic something is. It is not telling you that it's recyclable. So plastic bottles are frequently ones, but not all ones are plastic bottles. So they've made so many different types of plastics and products and shapes and etc. And they all have different mixes. So we're messaging on the shape. So plastic bottles, jugs, like a jug of milk or a jug of laundry detergent, and a tub, like a tub of yogurt, is what can be recycled.
What about coated board, like a milk container?
So that is trash, unfortunately, because it has fused plastic with paper. Same deal with coffee cups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And do plastic containers need to be washed first? Can those be dirty?
So, what I usually do if I finish like a tub of yogurt is put like this much water in the bottom and kind of shake it around just to get most of the bits off, and then I put it in the recycling. So they should be relatively clean. You don't need to run it through the dishwasher, but because plastic recycling is just much more difficult, in general, it needs to be pretty clean. Yeah. Only 9% of all the plastic we have ever made in the entire history of plastic has successfully been recycled, because it's just a difficult material to deal with. So, yeah. Okay. Common contaminants, no food or liquid ever in the recycling. Coffee cups, again, lined with plastic. Those coffee cups, they're also showing that that plastic liner, because it is exposed to heat, it will leach microplastics into your drink. Thousands to millions of particles, depending on the study you look at. No plastic bags. We should not be bagging our recycling at all in plastic. If you must bag, then you can do a paper bag in your paper recycling. And then no household hazardous waste, as we discussed. Compost. Any and all food scraps are fine, even chicken bones and eggshells. They are being taken to Novato at the WM Earth Care facility, and they will chip the material so it increases the surface area so they actually can break down the bones and eggshells and things like that. Because it is such a large pile of material, the heat gets high enough to break those things down. So any and all food scraps, plant trimmings, and then soiled, unlined paper. So like a pizza box, napkins, paper towels, things like that. My tip for you to try to determine if something is unlined or not is like our pizza boxes show that grease intrusion into the paper. We can see the stains. Frequently, like the salad bar takeout containers have like that shiny layer on the inside and they're not showing any grease intrusion. Or if we picture like a coffee cup, we're not seeing liquid stains in our coffee cups because they are lined. So that's just kind of a quick tip. And then common contaminants, no glass, no plastic of any kind, no metal or foil, and no household hazardous waste. And then my heartbreaker for people is that compostable plastics and bioplastics are not accepted in compost. We have a certified organic compost facility in Marin. It is not because we have a compost facility that's behind the times or not commercial or industrial. It's because it is certified organic. We produce a really high quality compost that can be used on organic farms. And if they were to accept bioplastic or compostable plastic, they would lose that certification. So that's one reason. It also does not break down that successfully and frequently gets skimmed out, even at the places that are taking it. And then there could be mixed in petrochemicals. It is difficult for both the facility and consumers to tell, is this a bioplastic? Is it a regular plastic that they've slapped a green leaf on? Who knows? So there's a lot of confusion. And ultimately, it still is a single-use product that we're using for maybe 5 minutes before we toss it. So
Is the compostable plastics are mainly PLA or something else?
it's mainly PLA. Yeah.
They just take a long time to break down, right? Is that kind of the
Yes. Yeah. And they need both oxygen, access to oxygen to break down. So if they get landfilled, they behave like regular plastic, and they also need heat to break down. So if we litter them onto the road or whatever, they also will not break down because there's no heat involved in that process. So there is a California state law that has been approved, and they're writing the regulations called SB 54 that will really tighten down on what can actually be labeled compostable based on what facilities are accepting across California. So I'm hoping that the confusion will soon be reduced at least. But there's only about 4 facilities in California that are accepting these bioplastics because they are such a pain. So I'm hopeful that both the products will improve and the confusion will be reduced. So I'm going to step on my compost soapbox for a minute here, because there are many, many benefits of compost. If we compost our food scraps, we get to return the nutrients that is embedded in our food back to the soil without the use of chemical fertilizer. Compost actually also acts like a sponge. It can retain a lot of water, which is incredibly important in a drought-prone state. And then when we landfill organic material such as food scraps or yard waste, they are creating methane gas emissions in landfills. This is because our landfills are so tightly packed that not even oxygen is getting into the landfill. So the bacteria that colonize landfills are anaerobic. They love an environment with no oxygen, and those bacteria are producing the methane gas. So our landfills are the 3rd largest source of human-caused methane in the United States. If we are not landfilling our food, we prevent those landfill emissions. And studies are also showing that when we add compost to soil, the soil itself becomes a carbon sink and starts to draw down additional carbon. So, twofold climate benefit just by putting our food scraps in the right place. That is why California has made it the law to keep compostable material out of the landfill. So I mentioned SB 1383 before, the short-lived Climate Pollutants Reduction Act, kind of a mouthful, so we say 1383. It was aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the waste sector and applies to residents, businesses, schools, apartment buildings. Everyone has to keep organic material out of the landfill. Access to compost is required by law. So if you live in an apartment building and your landlord or property manager is saying you don't need a green bin, by law, you do need a green bin. And then annual education is required, color coding and labeling. There's a whole host of things, but I will not bore you with the details. But violators can be fined, so this law has teeth. Okay, finally, what belongs in landfill are flimsy plastics and styrofoam, the bubble mailers. I know they have that little triangle symbol on them. The triangle symbol is telling you it's made of plastic. It's not telling you it's recyclable, even though they say recyclable, because they want to make you feel better about the product. So please don't recycle those. Styrofoam wrappers, flimsy plastic in general, plastic bags cannot be recycled. Lined paper, we already talked about, belongs in landfill. Truly unwearable textiles, if you can't donate it or turn it into rags or what have you, then unfortunately at this point, it is landfill. A lot of people are working on textile recycling, but it's in its infancy. And then miscellaneous plastics, like the compostable plastics, toys, things like that. Not really viable recycling for that currently.
I was just curious, does Zero Waste Marin have any plan for textiles in the future, or is it kind of out of scope for what you're doing?
It's a little bit out of scope because we don't own or operate any facilities in the county, but we are keeping our eye on any statewide legislation and trying to keep informed of, is anyone doing anything innovative to accept textiles, and is that legitimate? Does it have a legitimate outlet? And it's not just being accepted to make us feel better.
Yeah, it's tough now with some of the, they're interweaving elastane and various other polymer-based stuff that's really hard to process, right?
Yeah.
Is that if it were just cotton, is there a way to deal with it, or is it just too complex?
The composters don't want it
Yeah.
because it might be dyed or who knows
Right.
what. But I mean, 100% cotton, I would imagine would be easier to recover in like a secondhand fashion, that someone might be able to make something more easily out of it because they know it's a higher quality fabric and doesn't have plastic in it. But in general, end of life textiles, very hard to deal with currently.
And I assume they also degrade anaerobically in landfill. So is this also a methane source?
Yeah, I mean, for an organic fiber like a cotton or a hemp, technically yes, but it's just not comprising that large a percentage of our landfills by weight, which is how they track what goes in. Food is the single largest material category of what comprises our landfills at 24%.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I know that Resilient Neighborhoods has a program where they try to get people to repair things and get together and do that sort of thing.
Yes.
I know Fiber Shed does that with wool materials and that sort of thing as well. So are there any other groups that are promoting that?
So we are working with a nonprofit called Reuse Alliance, and we have brought repair fairs to Marin through that group. We hosted one 3 doors down, and we're bringing it back in June. Those repair fairs, they do textile repair. So if you tore the button off your favorite shirt and you don't know how to sew it back on, you can bring it in. They will fix it for free, and you can sit with them and watch if you want to learn. And also at those events, we've been doing clothing swaps at quite a few of them. So people can bring in clothes that are in good condition, but they no longer need, and then take anything that works for them for free. So we have been trying to do things like that just to reduce clothing waste in general, but true end of life, like, can it be recycled and repurposed into a new fabric? That's kind of where we hit the wall. So yeah, thank you for
Okay.
bringing that up. Okay. common examples of household hazardous waste, we talked about bulbs and batteries, e-waste. Vapes have become a real problem. They're considered both acutely toxic and an electronic waste because they have a battery component, paint and chemical, and then random stuff like nail polish and nail polish remover. So these are things that should go to the household hazardous waste facility. And then I'm almost done, but I wanted to summarize some of our recent outreach efforts. So in May and June of last year, 2025, we ran a countywide campaign about composting food scraps. So we had this sort of band festival style poster to try to catch people's eye, and that was accompanied by short social media videos that were sung by food to be sort of funny and catchy and remind folks that food scraps should go in their green bin. We put that out through social media, bus shelters, Pandora and radio, the Marin IJ, etc., and in English and in Spanish. We have also been recently doing a bring your own cup campaign. So we created this window decal is the circular one that says bring your own reusables. And then the rectangle is what we're calling a register card. So we can hand it to businesses. They can prop it up by their register, and it prompts people to consider if they're staying at the cafe for their coffee to just ask for their drink for here. So it's a totally voluntary program. There's no state law mechanism. We're just offering it to try to promote reusables. And then finally, the residential postcard that I alluded to before. This is your sneak preview. It should be hitting your mailboxes in the next month or so. We have funding from the state to message 83 and make the connection between composting and climate change. And we do have a requirement to educate all residents. So this is how we're doing that. It will go out to all residential addresses in the county.
Do you know what the compliance rate is on the composting?
So it would vary city to town and also the sector you're looking at. So single family homes or apartment buildings or commercial. It's not something I know off the top of my head, but the database that I was mentioning earlier, Smart 1383, you can pull those different levers. Do I want to see multifamily? Do I want to see businesses? What city or town do I want to look at? And you can see what the rate is of who is subscribed to compost service.
Right. But at the landfill, are they able to monitor for organic waste coming in or?
Yes. We recently did a waste characterization study, which is literally digging through landfill samples. So that report is published and available on our website. And what we saw was, again, there was slight variation between residential apartments and commercial, but it was between 24 and 26% of the landfill samples was still food waste. So we have a ways to go still. That was still food waste. Yeah.
What was it before 1383 was implemented? Do you know?
I don't know because this was the first landfill characterization study of its kind. Okay. So truly countywide, like we had all of the haulers divert their landfill loads to the landfill at Novato and had them specially pull aside trucks that had gone through commercial routes or residential routes. It was quite a large undertaking and it hadn't been done before. So we don't have a perfect baseline to compare to, unfortunately.
So still a quarter of solid waste that's coming in is food, not even other organic waste that might be coming in, but food specifically.
I believe it is food. I can double check for you, but the characterization study is on our website and it has very minute detail. But yeah, they broke down all the materials that they saw, even like subcategories of hazardous waste that are going into landfill and things like that people are illegally throwing.
So theoretically, that should be zero, right? Yeah. And it'd be interesting I wonder if we could look at other states that don't have an equivalent law and just see what the typical ratio is. It'd be interesting to know how much of an impact the 1383s had.
Yeah, definitely. And enforcement for 1383 became live January 1st, 2024. So it's been passed into law since 2016, but then there's been quite a large ramp process.
Okay.
So enforcement just began to and change years ago.
Got it. questions?
And if I could just jump
Yeah.
in and add before we get to questions, thank you, Casey, for the presentation. I think it was a really great overview of all the amazing programs that Zero Waste Marin has. And that's not even everything that their team does. They're such an amazing support for staff from all the jurisdictions and really keeping on top of everything that's going on waste-wise. They're also right now helping us update our special event permit to make sure it includes the SB 1383 language and that people who are using our public facilities are following these laws. They've supported a lot of the town's purchase of waste stations. So the ones that you see in the parks, the triple stations, these bins that are here in Town Hall, a lot of that's been supported by Zero Waste Marin. Casey also makes really great outreach flyers, and we have been using a lot of those. So they're a really great countywide resource. And thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Do we have any public comment or questions?
We do not have any public comment at this time.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. That's great. If you're able to stick around a little bit, we're going to go through some of the items that the committee's prioritizing this year. One of them is waste. Unfortunately, the people who are on that waste committee are not here today, but I was wondering if maybe Phoebe, are you familiar enough with what they're planning to do that we could have a quick chat about that while Casey's here?
Yes, I did get some notes from Brittany, which I believe are related to the waste effort that they were pursuing. So I could read those out briefly if we'd like to have that conversation.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. And then maybe just going forward, we can kind of make sure that you get connected with them so we can try to coordinate with you and support your efforts here in Corte Madera.
Absolutely.
Today was the day we're going to discuss what the plans were, so I don't actually know what they're planning, but
I have one question, I subscribe to Ridwell, which has plastic bags, basically 2 levels. So I assume, I pay for this, so it goes somewhere. So what's to do with plastic bags? Is it that costly to recycle, and where does it go? And
Yeah, great
is there any
question.
plan?
So the most common outlet for plastic bag recycling is Trex, which is like the plastic decking material. And as far as I'm aware, that's pretty successful. That one of the issues is that the contamination threshold is really low. So if there's like food grease in the plastic bags, or it's you threw in a bubble mailer with the grocery style plastic bags, like there's just a very low threshold for mistakes. So I think oftentimes it becomes not worth it to do like the grocery store collection bins outside of, Safeway or whatever, because there's just a lot of mix matched things that go in, and then the price of oil is generally low, so the price of plastic is generally low, so people just make new stuff. And then the other issue for traditional curbside hauling is that you're running it through all these machines at the material recovery facility, the recycling center, and they tangle like crazy. So they're not even making it through the machines. And then I have known of a material recovery facility that solved that problem, and then they were just holding the plastic bags at their facility waiting for a viable market to open up. So there's just a lot of issues along the way. And so people decide this is really not worth it because I may collect all this material and it's really nice and ready to go. And then the market closes. They have the material they need. They don't want any more. So it's just really a tricky material all around. But Trex is one of the more successful examples of recycling plastic bags. And I believe that's the outlet for Ridwell. I think I saw that on their website.
So, but Marin has no plans to jump into that issue anymore, I guess.
I mean, we don't control what the haulers accept. It's like not within our purview to direct a private business on what
Yeah.
they can or can't do.
Okay, thank you.
I had one other question just out of curiosity. How is Zero Waste Marin funded?
So we have assessments on any waste facilities located in Marin County, and that is how we are funded.
What is that again? I didn't get that.
Assessments on any permitted waste facilities in Marin County.
Any other questions for Casey? No? That was very helpful. Thank you for the overview.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Um,
Phoebe, do you want to just maybe quickly, to the extent you have a summary of what they're planning to do, that maybe we could just run through that?
Sure. Yeah. So this was the waste group, I believe, was Penelope, our youth member who wasn't able to make it, and then Brittany, Alana, who was also not able to make it, and might have also included Brittany Blair, our student ambassador. So Brittany, Clipper, Alana sent me some notes about what they were thinking. She said they have a lead with an AP environmental science teacher at Redwood about offering extra credit on a composting project. That might actually have been related to the xeriscaping. Not sure. And then Penelope had also spoken with the videographers at the Redwood Bark, which is the school newspaper, and they had agreed to create educational videos or posters around better waste practices. And they're also interested in further exploring the clothing drives / swaps happening at Redwood to promote more awareness in regards to fabric waste and disposal. And then they're also hoping to connect with Zero Waste Marin about the schools program. So those are the notes I have from Brittany.
Maybe we can just make sure that we get you connected and see if they can help support your effort. It's primarily Redwood, it sounds like they're focused on. Is that?
I think so, yeah, because
Yeah.
that's where our youth participants
Yeah.
are from.
Maybe at least they could leverage your collateral a little bit, like the posters and stuff. I love the poster with the looks like a rock concert.
oh yeah.
The festival bill with Meatloaf. So great. Good. Well, thanks very much. You're welcome to stick around, obviously, if you want to hear what else we're working on this year.
Yeah, I have another meeting at 5:30.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Thank you so much for having me. It's
Yeah.
great to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you. And will you circulate the slides?
I have Casey's slides, so I can
Okay,
send them out.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
If you could go.
Great. Okay. Well, let's move on to the subcommittee topics, starting with the electrification preparation. Karen, over to you.
Yes. Okay. So we met, and, as the topic says, the idea is to prepare residents for upcoming electrification regulations, or just in general to prepare. When I started looking into it, I guess I was surprised that both at the state level, CARB, and I guess Bay Area, I always get the facilities. What's Bay Area's name is?
The Bay Area Air District.
The Air District versus the Air
Resources Board.
Resources Board.
The-
That's just the Resources Board is the state and the district is the local. Neither of them have passed their regulation to require electric space and water heaters yet. So, we had talked about putting an article out in the town newsletter as well as a postcard. And potentially, I thought we could kind of leverage student resources. I see the Waste Committee is doing the same on doing a video, trying a new kind of communication that could be more widespread. And I would still really like to explore the video idea. Phoebe mentioned that the local jurisdiction, the Bay Area, okay, once again, the local
The Air District.
Air District is likely to pass their law in the spring. So I just think it might have more urgency if we time it, the postcard and the article, to put that out as soon as we hear from the local Air District and put that out. In terms of video, I would really like to explore that. I thought the workshop on water heaters was successful, but even though I think a total of 25, both in person and online participants, was successful, I think if we had a catchy video that somehow could be spread, throughout the town somehow, it would be really good to try. So those are the things we're thinking of. Yeah, and we need to meet once more to just finalize that strategy, given I didn't really know that the regulations weren't passed, or at least the state level. So that's what we're thinking.
So just so I understand, this is passed at the state level, the
It's
mandate.
passed neither.
Thought the state had passed it, but there's a local implementation step. Is that what you're-
No, so there's two sort of separate paths. My understanding is that the Bay Area Air District has adopted changes to it's the rules 9.6 and 9.4, I believe, that regulate emissions from stationary appliances like water heaters and HVAC systems. And so my understanding is that they've adopted the changes to implement a zero nitrous oxide emission requirement starting at certain years, but they haven't finalized the implementation program for that yet. So they're still debating. The water heater one is the one that's supposed to go into effect in 2027. And they've had implementation working groups running for the past several years to sort of work out exactly what that's going to look like. And they've come across, some of the concerns with having a flat out mandate, or what if there's an emergency replacement needed? What about, low income residents who may not be able to afford the additional cost of a heat pump? So my understanding is that they're right now working out sort of exemptions or other pathways for people who might be in those situations that are a little bit trickier. And that's what they are supposed to have finalized this spring. We've all been sort of waiting for a long time for those. So we'll see. Separately, this state air CARB, the California Air Resources Board, after the Air District adopted their regulations, decided that they were going to look into a statewide, basically the same policy statewide. My understanding is that they're still in they're farther out. They're looking at like a 2030 deadline for that.
Okay.
I know, I attend Marin electrical council meetings, and we've circulated a petition to ask the Air District to implement the strictest policy. So there's a petition out there that can be signed to, if you want to put your opinion into it. I can send that link to anybody who's interested.
So I guess the question would be, do we need to tie this effort necessarily to the legislative timeline, or can
Well-
we just promote?
We can. I just thought if something was going to be passed in the spring, which shouldn't be too much longer, it might have more impact to say, we've definitely, the Air Resources Board has passed this, it will be implemented, as opposed to saying it's-
Any day now.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought a month or two, it might work
Yeah.
better that way.
Okay. And so the idea would be an education outreach campaign based on
Yes.
video.
Well, I guess three things.
Yep.
Article, postcard, and video. But the video would really be dependent on high school resources, I think. So that's an if, but I'd like to explore that. Unless the town has anything that would, that could help us do a video.
Not aware of any
Yeah.
expertise on
Yeah, I
staff
think
around
it may be something that, for instance, we could make contacts now. And for instance, with the AP, environmental teacher, whatever, try and coordinate students who might be interested and have it as a project in the fall. You definitely have to do the legwork now.
Okay. And it's primarily focused on heat pumps, on the water heaters, or?
All electrification.
Yep.
It's where you focus on, the requirements will be the heaters and the space heaters and water heaters, but your preparation for electrification can include others. And Phoebe's given us many resources, some have 10 steps or 8 steps or whatever to electrification preparation, that kind of thing. So it's really preparing to add more electric load to your household.
Any questions?
Yeah, I would just comment on that. I think we want to avoid, it's good to educate about the changes that are coming. I think we want to try to avoid creating any sort of sense of panic or, making sure that people don't feel that they need to go out and replace their appliances early with another gas appliance because they won't be able to get one after this deadline. So just encourage trying to keep a sort of positive framing of, moving towards a clean energy future and getting ready and sort of that kind of framing so that we're not having unintended consequences.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's a valid concern. And, I have that too. And we'll have to really be careful in the messaging. Yeah. I think, even though I think the timing is better after it's passed, I think we start out with the environmental message, get ready for electrification, to, aid in pollution. And the regulations are, I'm not going to say a footnote, but they're the secondary message, not the primary message.
And the main barrier, aside from the cost of the actual appliances, is the electrical panel upgrade typically, or is that, given that age of the housing stock here?
It can be as the common steps, the material that I've read says, there are ways to avoid that as I think we've seen in presentations by different load management techniques, et cetera. And it also says most houses can accommodate them. I hope that's true. So those are the two messages that we put in.
And our building code here, if you do a renovation above a certain threshold, you have to upgrade your electrical panel. Is that correct now?
No. So what's there are some sort of electrification readiness provisions in the single family renovation reach code, which is for projects adding or altering 500 or more square feet. And so if you are modifying your panel or if you choose to do one of the electrification readiness measures in the menu of options, you can either upgrade it or show a plan of how you're going to electrify everything in your house on the existing panel.
Just to Phoebe's point, if we feel that people are going to panic, even if we try and keep that implementation, the regulation message downplayed, should we time it such that it's later in the fall so that it's more informative and that they don't really have time to run out? And I don't know. It's just a thought. The timing could be important. But I do think informing, the residents that this is coming or it's imminent and try to prepare is something,
Yep.
I don't know, that we should be doing. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen. Look forward, I guess, to the next update on that one then. Yeah. Tree planting, Sarah.
Yeah, excellent. So the tree planting subcommittee consists of myself, Karen, and Penelope, and we had an opportunity to sit down and chat about opportunities here. To start the conversation, I referenced the town's climate action plan to get a sense of the priority items within the tree planting subject. And they can really be kind of focused into two major buckets: public tree planting and tree planting on private land. And when we were thinking about opportunities for the ways the subcommittee could get engaged, one opportunity is to promote the education of tree planting that is low water, that's fire safe, to Corte Madera residents. So to start off with the subcommittee's work, we're going to be developing some outreach materials, a flyer to be disseminated within the Redwood High School community as well as throughout Corte Madera, especially as spring approaches and people start thinking about their gardens again, to promote the kinds of trees that can be most beneficial for their properties. We're also going to be looking at opportunities to engage in tree planting initiatives on public lands as they become available. We'll still be looking into opportunities there that are aligned with town initiatives. We haven't identified those yet, but they are on our radar to be able to incorporate the hands-on piece of this subcommittee topic that students expressed interest in.
So the idea is to disseminate guidelines for if you're a private landowner and you want to plant a new tree.
Yes. Yep. What kind of trees are low water, are going to be fire resistant, incorporate some fire-wise regulations, within that so that people can get kind of a one-stop shop of what are some, tree species or types that are, native and low water needs, and how can you plant them in a way that's going to be safe for your property.
And how would you disseminate that information?
So we're working to create a flyer that Penelope will help us disseminate through Redwood High School's channels for Corte Madera residents. We're thinking of utilizing the town's newsletter, social media. I'm thinking of even printing them out and bringing them to, the library, public spaces, wherever we can get eyes on it.
Nurseries as well.
And that's a great idea.
Or
Yeah.
planting the trees.
Yeah.
Have you thought about, so you can use me as a guinea pig because we have a diseased tree in our front yard, which we have to take out. So
Oh, wow.
we'll plant something else, mainly for privacy, but so you can, but one of the things that, as we were thinking about that, we're like, gee, maybe we ought to rethink, the whole front side of the yard, basically. So we're thinking about getting like a landscape architect to come and do a consult or something. Is there any way to kind of, I don't know, fold in some pro bono landscape architect advice or somehow solicit some input from people around that? Because I think it tends to not just be, I want to plant a tree. It's usually like, okay, what kind of tree, but where am I going to put it? Like, what are the other considerations I need to have? Just wondering if there's not to create work for you, but if there's a more holistic approach to it that we could somehow support.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And that's something that we kind of talked about within the landscaping subcommittee too. I can expand on that when we get to that subject. But I think there are some opportunities for residents to receive that kind of guidance from some resources I found.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have a timeline for this?
Not a precise timeline, but we are looking to do it in preparation for spring here. So within, I think, the next month or two, we'd have these ready and shared.
Right. Okay. I mean, one thing that I can see already, we're going to need to coordinate between the different subcommittees if we're all going to be doing different flyers and that kind of thing. There's a way to kind of package those up and leverage. You don't want to dilute the message, but
Yeah, that's a good point.
you may have a bunch of not competing, but coincident collateral going out.
Yeah. Competing priorities. Yeah, I think that's something for us to think about. I'm sure we can figure
Combine
out
them.
like a good timeline for kind of spreading them out a bit.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the landscaping? That's the next step.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, yes, I can go into the landscaping group. So this group consists of myself, Brittany, Clipper, Alana, and Phil. And we were talking about opportunities to educate Corte Madera residents beyond just tree plantings, but again, plantings for their private properties that would be primarily low water and ecosystem friendly for our focus area. And we're looking for opportunities to be able to educate residents around these topics. And one opportunity that we talked about was participating in Sonoma Marin's eco-friendly garden tour. This is something that they do each year, and homes and public gardens volunteered to be on a master map, and participants can look at the map that's publicly displayed, and on the day of the tour can go and visit sites that interest them. And last year, the site that was in Corte Madera was the demonstration garden in Town Park Playground from Refugee Marin. and I participated last year through Refugia, and it was a really nice event to have people come and see native plants and low water, drought tolerant plants in the wild, so to speak, cultivated wild, but to have experts there to ask questions to. They also had several tables of other partnering organizations there. So Refugia Marin had a table, Marin Water was there, and Zero Waste Marin was there. So I reached out to Refugia Marin to see if they'd be interested in having us join them as a table where we could, one, help support outreach to get more Corte Madera residents specifically attending this specific site during the garden tour, so they can see this site that is here in the town and be able to access information from local experts on this day. And from our table's participation, we could share information. One, the flyer that the tree committee subcommittee makes, but two, materials that we're able to collect around these topics of being mindful of low water usage when it comes to landscaping. We're thinking about ways to draw more residents, including maybe incorporating a kids activity, seeing if we can provide a giveaway. Some of the finer details we're still working on, but our participation is welcomed by Refugia Marin, which is hosting this site. It is something that we think can be an effective way to spread this information to local residents.
When is that event?
It is Saturday, May 9th, I believe between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.
That's what you said.
Yeah, great.
Yep, okay, sorry. And that they're using the same garden this year?
Yes, yep, there's going to be the same site, Town Park Playground, right here around the lagoon.
Yeah, again, that maybe is an opportunity where there could be other material as well, if we're going to have a table there.
Yeah.
Activities.
Yes, absolutely. And we're thinking about opportunities for people to kind of get assessments of their property, like you were mentioning before. And I saw that the Marin Masters Gardener program seems to have an online resource where you can fill out a form and have a free assessment done of your property. That's something I'm going to follow up on to make sure it's still active, and to perhaps see if we can get someone to join us at the table to be able to share a little bit of information about that offering.
It's a great idea. I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking was, I mean, I assume that this is lead generation for, landscape architects who, would you come have a look? And then it turns into a project that they.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, look into that too.
It's also, we talked about engaging the water district and, promoting or advising about their rebates
Yes.
for various levels of,
Mhm.
how much water you infuse into it from your rain gutters and that sort of thing. Makes the rebate higher if you are.
I think rebates are regulated by the Utility Commission. I think water isn't water under that. I'm not positive, but
I think Phil was referring to Marin Water's rebates, which are separate.
Marin Water has a rebate program where you have to have a pre-inspection and then they look at what you remove that's water consumptive and then give you a rebate
right.
based on the square footage of what you install.
Yeah, but rebates are still, it's still regulated. I'm not sure the commission that does it, but I don't know that that's.
I think it's entirely within the water district's purview.
Could be right.
Yeah, that program's been running for a while.
Yeah.
But I believe Vinitha said that she had some difficulty accessing it for some reason. Useful to understand that. Okay, that sounds like a good slate of activities. So they've agreed that you're going to have a table there between now and May, and develop some materials.
Yes. Yep. So we're hoping to kind of create a one-stop shop there where people they'll attend the event, check out the garden there, hopefully get inspired, and we can talk to them at our table about ways that they can implement by sharing information about the rebates, about ways that they can get assessments of their property done, and to share some preliminary information, while they're theoretically motivated and excited about seeing these kind of plants in action to be able to motivate residents to make these changes to their properties.
I would encourage for both the tree planting and the landscaping, though, to liaise with the local nurseries, most of which
Okay.
are not in Corte Madera. I actually don't know if we have a big one, but I'm thinking of like Sloat and West End Nursery, and then you've got like Goodman's has some plants and, you know, seeds and that kind of stuff. Maybe there's an opportunity where they would distribute some of the content as well. They had some flyers or something like that.
Oh, it's a great idea. Cool.
There's also the seed bank in Petaluma.
Oh,
You can learn about a lot of different products.
Okay, any other comments, questions on that one? No. We covered the waste one, I think, as best we can already. Has anything to add? In which case it's over to you, Phil, for tea reduction.
I met with Pat at some length about this, and we decided that our efforts are better spent doing other things. It would be logistically very difficult to promote this through merchants and that sort of thing. And I again raised the issue, as I have before, about LED signage to promote certain things in the community, much as we do on the reader board at the rec center. And an LED sign that motorists can see when they go by might be more compelling than some other method to do that. And I think that would be just advertising community events in a more visible manner than they are now. I would encourage that we explore that visibility, that opportunity to provide more visibility to the community about what's going on and what's important in the town, including, the message about flooding and potential flooding and that sort of thing. It would also give people a heads up when something's happening. So I don't know how we go about doing that if we would advise the council to consider such a thing.
So you're saying add that to our kind of repertoire of materials that we would.
Yeah, instead of sending or in lieu of sending postcards and flyers and social media,
Yeah.
or to augment that, with a visible message that's in front of everybody as they drive by or bike by or walk by or whatever.
Yeah. Does it make sense? It sounds like we have the May event for the eco-friendly garden thing. We haven't talked about whether we're going to do July 4th and the car show again this year, but to have kind of standard set of collateral that we make available at all those events that would include multiple topics, or do we feel like we should just focus on those specific topics for those specific events?
I feel, I think it depends on the event and who the audience is. For instance, at a garden event, I think it makes sense to focus on garden related issues. The car show, possibly for electric cars, again, things associated with that. 4th of July, that's more of a general public, so possibly a variety. That would be my input.
Okay. You look like you're gonna.
yeah. No, I think that's what I generally was thinking too.
Yep.
That I think it is helpful to have a central message when it makes sense. It's logical to do so, and we can kind of steer people in a particular direction. I think that was well said for the car show and for the eco-friendly garden tour for July 4th. Unless, well, as July comes, if something, starts becoming a priority, or we see, there's a way to kind of steer attendees of that event towards something that could be useful. But for now, taking a general approach there, maybe finding some accessible ways. It's a lot of families with kids for that event to engage in some of these topics could be useful. Something for us to think about as the summer approaches.
But for now, you're not going to prioritize it?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So you're contributing on one or two of the other ones, right? The landscape one, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I did speak with Jody Timms, who's attended some of our meetings, invited me to speak to the Fairfax Transportation Committee, which I did for in a half-hour Zoom and talked about the electrification project I did for multifamily housing and that I was willing to, not as a public person, but as a individual, to meet with whomever might be interested in pursuing that further.
Okay.
So I'm still hanging on to VMT, but in a different sort of way.
Right. Okay. All right. That's what we had on that agenda item. I don't know if we have any public observers who wish to comment.
We do not.
In that case, move on to, well, thank you, everybody, first of all, for the updates and pushing this forward. So I guess we'll just have these kind of rolling updates every month. See where we get to. But it sounds like the nearest term tangible activity will be preparing for that May event and also subject to, I guess, whatever rules get implemented.
Yeah, we can keep preparing, like soften the message from, I have one draft, keep drafting it and look for videographers and do a few things. Yeah.
All right. In that case, let's move on to item 5, which is updates and reports.
Great. So one exciting update that's come in since the last meeting is last week our energy reach code was approved by the California Energy Commission. So now that we have their stamp of approval, we can begin implementing that. Staff have also brought the staff's work plan for 2026 to council, and that was approved last night. So as we discussed when we talked about the Climate Action Committee work plan, sort of every department and committee gives their input and it's all incorporated into one overall staff work plan. So there were a few changes from what was discussed with the committee, and they're not really changes to what I'll be working on, but just sort of how they're represented in the plan. So there's an item on permit streamlining and discounts, and in general, the staff work plan tries to be very actionable and have what's on there in each item be something that can really be completed and that is tangible when it's completed. So for that permit discount item, which was sort of vaguely worded, the identified action there is included in reviewing the existing development impact fees, updating Nexus studies if necessary. And that's because in reviewing our permit fees, the sort of biggest culprit of what's causing disparities between electrification and non-electrification projects is this street impact fee that's included in one of the components of the overall permit fee. So that's what we'll be aiming to update this year. And then if there's other items that get identified that could help support that, those could be added at the mid-year review.
Sorry, can you just explain that?
Yeah, I was getting my same question with a street fees.
Yeah, I can't explain it in very much detail because it's a public works fee and I don't have a lot of background for it, but it is a fee that's applied based on the valuation of the project, and essentially electrification projects are more likely to trigger that threshold and that fee. So we'll be taking a look at how that fee is calculated and applied, and hopefully making changes so that it's applied equally.
How much is the fee?
It varies based on the project because it's based on valuation.
Okay. All right. But other than that, the plan as we discussed was approved.
So the other item that was sort of deemed not specific enough was the VMT reduction item. So in the next in the next few months, I'll be working to identify some more specific items for that strategy that can then be added to the work plan. So it was sort of worded as explore strategies to reduce VMT, and
Yeah.
that's not something that's really completable.
So just a question, Phoebe. So as I understand from the data, the majority of vehicle miles traveled is commuting. So is that what would be at issue, sort of, or you're still thinking about it?
I'm not sure what you mean. Is that sort of what would be targeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I mentioned that there's been sort of a countywide effort on this. And even in that process, we've been sort of meeting on it for almost a year now, I would say. And it's such a large topic that it's sort of hard to nail down exactly where we can fit in. There's so many different organizations and agencies throughout the county that are working on this. I think one of the potential avenues for commuting is looking at the Marin Commutes program, which I think I mentioned. It's run by the Transportation Authority of Marin, and it's a sort of incentive-based program where if you log your trips, you can earn prizes for commuting outside of your single occupancy vehicle. So that's one avenue I think we could look at, sort of how to increase engagement with that program in Corte Madera and promote it more. But yeah, that's an area where I'm still doing some research, and I went back through our climate action plan and looked at all the items that were there and sort of reevaluating, what we're doing, what other agencies are doing, and where we can do more.
It's a hard one to impact.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so that's the update on the work plan. And then wanted to give you a heads up about some upcoming webinars that Marin County are hosting. I think we've seen the past couple of years, they normally host a couple webinars in the springtime. So there's one coming up on Wednesday, March 4th, which is around saving energy at home. And then they're having another one in April 15th, that's all about heat pumps is the topic. And so that'll be covering both space heating and water heating heat pump. It coincides with California's first ever heat pump week, which is going to be April 11th through the 19th. It's being organized by the Building Decarbonization Coalition, and they're aiming to increase public awareness of heat pumps, and there'll be a sort of coordinated statewide effort and some outreach collateral that we can use as well to promote those kind of events.
I mean, maybe that would align with your project. If maybe promoting that actually could be a pretty useful, try to get.
I think, well, at least preparing for electrification. So it's not the heat pump themselves. It really
Yep.
is, can you accommodate? I think. So I don't know whether this is the same thing or not sure.
I mean, they may be talking about, I assume they'll be talking about that as part of it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can share more information about that as it gets closer and as we get more information.
Okay, heat pump week. All right, I like it.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's all my updates.
Okay, any updates? Rest of the committee members?
Yeah, Phil and I joined Jody Tim's regional climate action collaborators meeting. And it was a special one because Supervisor Eric Luckin was in attendance, along with representatives from Fairfax and San Anselmo, Larkspur, the Marin Conservation League, among many others. And it was an opportunity to hear from Supervisor Luckin about some of the things coming up for him, including that he's really looking to prioritize some high impact actions like building electrification and sea level rise issues that are coming across his desk as kind of an important advocacy window is coming up with workshops and hearings in February and March to shape the county's climate work plan. Also during this time, there was a lot of talk about the benefits that can come from collaboration among these different groups. And so each party had an opportunity to share some of the work that they were doing, including ours, Corte Madera. So we're able to share that we're looking at some of these new topics through subcommittees. And a lot of these other climate action groups are also kind of re-strategizing for the year ahead. So there's opportunities for collaboration there. And some entities also shared some upcoming events, including that Fairfax and San Anselmo is having electrification fair on March 15th from 11 to 1 at 46 Park Road, Fairfax, California. But that's an opportunity for people to visit with vendors and learn more about electrification efforts and how to do so in their own homes. And there's also going to be an Earth Day celebration on April 26th from 12 to 3 at the Mill Valley Community Center.
Sorry, what was the date again on that one?
April 26th for the Earth Day celebration at Mill Valley Community Center from 12 to 3.
Can you share those with Phoebe and could you circulate?
Oh,
those
yeah.
to-
Absolutely.
Great, thanks for participating in that. Sounds interesting. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, in that case, we'll move on to future agenda items. Other than the updates on the subcommittees, Phoebe, is there anything else that we need to have on the radar here?
I didn't have anything on my forward agenda.
Okay. So I think for the next meeting, hopefully we'll have everybody here and we can go into a little more detail, and to the extent that people have, drafts of content that they want to share, that would be a useful next step, and maybe try to populate a few more in terms of dates and timing and when we're going to roll things out, how we'll do it.
Maybe how we'll coordinate amongst the subcommittees and
Yes.
not having everything at once or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Phoebe can help coordinate the coordination since we're not allowed to actually meet together except in these meetings.
Yeah.
I suppose the subcommittee heads, 3 of them could get together and talk about that where there's significant overlap.
Well, we can't have what's called serial meetings. So I think it would be best to have that kind of coordination with me involved.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Okay.
Coordinate. Just if people if the tree planting team and the landscaping team are doing something that's like highly overlapping, facilitate that conversation.
Well, Sarah's on both of those, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, if anything comes up between now and the next meeting that needs to be on the agenda, let Phoebe and myself know, please. And otherwise, I think we're adjourned, unless there's any other comments.
Yeah.
No, you have a comment?
Nope.
No, okay. Yeah, good. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.